Today we're going to calculate the end of the world, our doomsday, with maps. Yeah! Since everyone loves Edgar so much, I brought him along and I'm gonna explain it to you. If Edgar can understand, anyone can understand. You better pay attention. Let's use some snazzy colors. So there's two versions of this. There's Leslie's Doom and Carter's Doom. Maybe there's more, I don't know. It kind of blew my mind when I heard about it because at the end of the day, it's just using probability. And there are obviously papers disputing these two arguments, but there's equal amount of papers disputing the disputations, or I don't know how to say that. So, you know, take it as you will. Let's start off, Edgar. Let's start off with Leslie's Doom. I think that's my favorite. You paying attention? Okay, so let's imagine that the total amount of humans is n, large n, excuse my handwriting, and this is the total amount of humans to ever live. We're assuming, for the sake of Leslie's Doom, that we will not live forever. Then we have n, I guess we can call this your birth rank. Not sure entirely if that's the case, but it kind of works for the sake of it. Then, if we picture an interval from 0 to 1, where we want to find out n. That seems impossible, right? How can we possibly know the amount of humans that will ever live? We just don't know that. But we can, with a certain likeliness, calculate how many humans will ever live. So if we assume our fractional position, f, is evenly distributed here. Could be anywhere, baby. If I had to tell you, Edgar, where do you think you live here? I guess we have to calculate with dogs then. I don't want to do that. Where do you think you are? You don't know. You couldn't possibly know. N could be such a large number. So yeah, our fractional position is n divided by n, evenly distributed. But what we can do to make it a little easier... Are you getting bored? To make it a little easier for ourselves, we can use the interval 0.05. Let's say that's here instead. So let's say we're somewhere in between here instead. So f is basically bigger than 0.05. We are basically saying with a 95% certainty that we are not the first 5% of humans to have ever lived. Does that make sense, Edgar? Did I say that right? We are with 95% certainty the last 95% of humans to have ever lived within that group. So basically, same thing. Are you falling asleep? This is interesting, okay? So if we rearrange this, we get that n is 95% likely to be smaller than 20n. And we know, this is where it gets good again, and we know that 100 billion humans have lived. It's an estimate, but that's what Wikipedia says, and I'm going with it. Please, please. This is important. And we know with 95% certain accuracy that 20n is bigger than n, the total population that will ever live. And if we multiply that with 100 billion, so we are 95% likely to never exceed, how would you call this number? 2 trillion. Yeah, 2 trillion. To reiterate, we are 95% sure that the human population will never exceed 2 trillion, Edgar. Now, if we imagine that each person lived for 80 years and our human population remains stable at 10 billion, which it currently is. So if we take the remaining amount of humans, let me do this really quick. So this is the remaining amount of humans that have left to be lived. And if we take that times 80, what do we get? The original one used 60, but I think the updated number is 100. So 15,200 years we have left to live, Edgar, with 95% certainty. What do you think of that? Yeah? That's kind of cool that we can calculate our doomsday. That's kind of epic, right? What the fuck am I doing? Edgar, we have one more doomsday scenario to calculate. You want to hear about Carter's doomsday as well? Okay, let's go to Carter's doomsday. It's not as interesting, but it uses a cool thing. So if we move on to Carter's doomsday, what he says, he uses the Bayes theorem, which is a actually really cool probability math equation. It was used historically in World War II, for example, to calculate the likeliness of the amount of tanks that the enemies had in World War II, and let's say you find a tank with the serial number 500, you can then calculate what's the probability of the total amount of tanks that they had. I'm not sure if that's what they calculated exactly, but it's the same principle. And it's also the same principle as if you imagine two boxes. They all have balls inside them that are numbered. One box has 100 balls inside of it, and the other box has 1,000 balls inside of it. Now, if you were to be given, I don't know, let's say a ball with the number 5 on it, and we say that that ball came from one of the boxes, which box do you think is more likely, Edgar, that the ball came from? Well, obviously, the box with less numbers in it, right? That's just simple logic. And we're kind of using the same logic here to calculate whether we are gonna get a quick Doomsday or a later Doomsday. So the probability, this is how you write probability, I've learned, for a quick Doomsday, before we know our birth rank. So when you calculate probability, what I've learned is that it matters the probability before we know all the circumstances. So let's say, obviously, if you don't know what your birth rank is, the probability for a quick Doomsday and a late Doomsday are the same. It's 50-50, baby. And then this is our early birth rank. So let's say that a quick Doomsday would mean that we live out our time on Earth. Oh, we can use the number that we got before for that, actually. The late Doomsday would mean that we go out in the stars, in the galaxy. We multiply vastly by number, 1,000 times more population will be born. So we have the probability before we know our birth rank for a quick Doomsday and a late Doomsday. Since we have no clue at this point, they're equal, 50%, okay? Then, obviously, we know our birth rank, it's more or less. We know that we are among the first 100 billion to have ever lived, right, Edgar? We know that for a fact, which means that we are inside here, yeah. That means with our birth rank, early birth rank in mind, the probability for quick Doom is 1, and the probability with our birth rank in mind for late Doom is 1,000 times less, since it's 1,000 times bigger. So if we wanted to calculate the probability for... You're the worst. Okay, I'm trying to explain this, and I'm already struggling. If you wanted to calculate our probability for a quick Doomsday, we can then use Bayes' theorem. So I've just put a picture on it, so you know I'm not fucking about. It basically looks like this, which gives us plus times 1,000, and this becomes 1,000 divided with 1,001, which is basically 99.9% sure that we are gonna get a quick Doomsday instead of a late Doomsday, according to the circumstances that we just put out. So what did we learn here today, Edgar? That humanity is fucked, but that's okay. What's that, Edgar? So I guess an argument you could use against this is that, well, let's say you're born Norwegian. Oh, there's 5 million Norwegians, and how many? 1.4 billion. So that means you're way likely, really, you should be born Chinese, but you're Norwegian. So I think what we really proved here, once and for all, Edgar, is that statistically, no one should be born Norwegian. What do you think of that? Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye! You thought I was dead, but true relevance never really died.